previous meeting. Take a motion to accept the minutes from the previous meeting.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, second. Nobody opposed, unanimous. All right, Rebecca, will you read the first resolution?
Item 2 is confirming the appointment of the Director of the Albany County Real Property Tax Service Agency.
Actually, he's.
Mr. Chairman, if I could introduce the candidate, please.
Sure, by all means.
Thank you, sir. So the County Executive's Office is seeking approval for the legislature to appoint Michael McGuire to the position of Director of the Real Property Tax Service Agency under the Department of Management and Budget. If you've reviewed his resume as enclosed in the packet, you will see he's uniquely qualified to this. He's been the assessor in multiple municipalities. He has other work experience as well that meshes with this, as well as a bachelor's degree that also ties directly into this field.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. McGuire?
I have a question for Mike, Chairman.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I can't see him on the screen, but, oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Michael, yeah, good luck to in your new position. One of the things we see a lot in the legislature are mistakes that the town and municipalities make. And we correct these all the time, and I'm wondering, do you have any plans down the road to help the local assessors maybe get based on some of the expertise you can share with them? Because you've got so much experience on so many different assessor positions, it looks like. But I think that, I don't know if the county's done that, but I think that might be helpful because I'm really surprised by the number of mistakes that are made by local clerks that we have to kind of correct all the time.
Sure. Mr. Groom, when there are mistakes on the final assessment roll, it does, and we have to have corrected tax bills, it does fall to the legislature to correct them. And there are some instances where it does happen, unfortunately. I do want to work with our county assessors to hopefully help increase their training, and maybe that can cut down on some of the mistakes that we have had that had to go to the county. I will say that I had one or two. I'm currently the assessor in New Scotland, and I think I've sent 2 your way. So I appreciate you approving them, because it does help out the residents who, where we've made mistakes. And, sometimes those mistakes are made because we don't necessarily have all the information available to us at the time we're making decisions, and we get some information that comes in after the fact. And once we've finalized our role, the only way to have an administrative change is to send it to the legislature. So, there are some instances where it's not a mistake based on the experience, but it might just be what's available at that point in time to us. So it is something that I would like to try to work on. Yes.
Okay, good luck. I'm sure you'll do well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, I'll take a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Thank you, Sean. Second. Anybody opposed? No, it's unanimous. Congratulations, Mr. McGuire.
Thank you very much. I
And the
appreciate it.
salary- And Rebecca, what's the salary for that position?
Salary for 2021 is 102,929.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McGuire, you want to say anything?
Just to say thank you very much for your service to the county. I look forward to working with you in my new capacity, and I'm excited to get started. So thank you all very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. McGuire.
Thank you.
Okay, next resolution, Rebecca?
Item 3 is appointment of a member to the Albany County Airport Authority.
And there's no salary with this job?
No, Mr. Chair, this is Mike McLaughlin from the County Exec's Office. This is just a reappointment of actually an existing member whose term had expired. It's
Okay, great.
Kevin.
Any questions?
Kevin Hicks, sorry, I should have said the name.
Any questions for Kevin? Kevin, you have anything to say?
I don't believe Kevin's here, Mr. Chair. This is.
Oh, yeah, here? Okay, no problem. I'll take a motion to accept Mr. Kevin.
I'll make that motion.
Second. All right, anybody opposed? It's unanimous. Congratulations, Kevin. Next thing, Rebecca?
Item 4 is appointment of a member to the Albany County Ethics Commission.
Okay. Any question for Mr. Clark? No?
I'll make the motion. If you're looking for one.
Okay, take a second.
Second.
Okay, anybody opposed?
No.
So it's unanimous. Is Mr. Clark present? Want to say something?
He is not, Mr. Chairman.
He's not there? Okay, thank you. What's next, Rebecca?
Item 5 is a discussion regarding Albany County timekeeping practices.
Okay, who's there for the Republican committee? Republican Party, I'm sorry. What legislators?
I'm a GOP.
Mr. Grimm,
I think
Mr. Ethier.
Mr. Grimm, that's all? Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, I'm here also, but not as a member of the committee, Paul Bergdorf.
Okay. How about Frank? Is Frank there?
I think Mr. Moriello is here,
Oh, he is there. Okay.
but he has himself
So,
here. He might not.
I just want to make it clear, is this the meeting you guys were requesting, you three guys were talking about in the past? Is this going to satisfy you with this meeting?
Mr. Ethier, yes, I am here.
Oh, you there, Frank? This
Yes.
meeting is what you requested in the past. We finally got it together.
Yes,
Hopefully
it is.
It's beneficial to you.
I hope so.
All right. Yeah, I hope so too. But I want to make one thing clear. As far as I'm concerned, I don't want it to be a meeting of a personality attacks and stuff like that. I think we should keep it above that, in which I hope we all would, and we just get input from our invited guests, and hopefully they'll answer questions that were concerns of us and also the Republicans.
Hey, Mr.
With
Ethier,
that,
this
we
is
can
Andrew.
start. Hi, Andrew.
Hey, I just wanted to thank you for helping us facilitate this meeting with the comptroller and our commissioner of HR tonight. As we all know, myself and the majority leader came together and we put together a legislative proposal to ask these individuals to come together, the experts, to convene on this issue, which has been so widely publicized in Albany County. And that's what we do here. We get the best minds to bring to bear on an issue, and we think on it, we work on it, we deliberate on it, and we go forward. And I want to thank our comptroller and Ms. Clement for their work going forward, and also for yourself, Mr. Chairman, for kind of facilitating this effort going forward. And I'm anxious to seeing what we've come up with and work towards putting this to a good resolution. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Andrew. So we're ready to start. Who wants to ask the first question? Go ahead, Sue or Jen. You want to say something, or how you want to get this thing started, or just questions from us?
Do you want me to just
Okay, I'll
introduce
take.
first, Gil, and then you can ask questions?
Yeah, why don't you do that? Yeah.
Okay, let me just introduce members of the Personnel Committee. I'm here along with the Commissioner Jennifer Clement and Chief Auditor Stephanie Slominski regarding the Albany timekeeping practices and the response we submitted to the legislators pursuant to Resolution number 276 of 2020. In response, the Department of Audit and Control and Human Resources collaborated on ideas, solutions, and implementation strategies that increase the accuracy and efficiency of time and attendance reporting. We'd be happy to answer any questions the committee may have regarding our suggestions to the rules and regulations policy.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Any questions?
I have some questions, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Grimm, go ahead.
Yeah, there's on personal business. It seems to me that in a couple different places, it says different things about it. Like if you go first, I think it's 2B. Hold on a second. And one, for example, says no personal business. Then later on, it says you can do personal businesses. Well, I'll quote it for you. It's on under Rules and Regs, Article 14, infractions. It says this does not include incidental and limited use of a personal cell phone, mobile telephone per person to respond to an or emergency situation. So I guess the question is, how do we prevent people from doing personal business, but be realistic about it? Because if you take a call from your wife, or you call the car shop, you're gonna pick your car up at 5. That's personal business, but I don't think that's gonna break any violations or anything. So I need some clarity on that as to personal business and what is allowed.
I think I can speak to that. That's why the definition under infractions is slightly different, because they're trying to distinguish between those two things. Under infractions, that wouldn't necessarily qualify as an infraction. So it specifically talks about incidental use, or, for an emergency response. I know, answering if your car is ready isn't necessarily an emergency, but obviously it's limited in duration.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I think when we're talking about personal business, excessive use of a personal device, although it's your personal device, but during the county workday, we're talking about excessive use. I think that's why the two are different. One falls under infractions, where we drill down on it a little more under the infraction section.
Well, yeah, and the infraction here, personal business conducted during business hours. This does not include incidental and limited use of a cell phone for personal use to respond to an immediate and emergency situation. But I know people every day, they use their personal phone for situations that are not immediate and emergency. So I think we really need to clarify what they actually can do. What I think realistically is, you can make a personal call or text, but it has to be very limited. And, you can't talk to a girlfriend or a boyfriend for half an hour. That isn't. So I think there needs to be a little bit of clarity on what is allowable on your personal device, because people are going to be texting on the personal device.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, this is Andrew.
Okay, Andrew.
Hey, I appreciate that there's good crosstalk already on this idea and this measure that we're working on tonight. I would ask if there's specific details that we can work on, that we work on that stuff offline. If there's broad stroke ideas, any major issue with what's been proposed so far, we can raise that tonight. But Mr. Grimm and anyone else, and for members of the Democratic Caucus that are on the call now, our respective counselors are going to be looking at what's been proposed, working with the comptroller's office and HR to kind of administratively kind of work on what's been proposed. But if there's detail-oriented stuff that we want to change, I would ask that we can kind of work on that potentially offline. And if there's major issue items that we can talk about tonight, great. Otherwise, let's work out the details offline.
Gil, if I may.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, excuse me.
Yeah, Paul, go ahead.
Andrew, would you also include the minority council in those discussions?
Oh, of course. And if they haven't been already, Mr. Bergdorf, I'll take that on me. But yes, this is going to be a holistic approach to this, as I mentioned before.
Because a lot of work went into the original draft that we had put together, which then got pared down. Unfortunately, I've only got two computers in front of me, one which has Zoom and the other which has Granicus. So I don't have a third computer with the actual report that Mike Morris sent to us last Friday. But one thing I did notice in towards the back of the document, where there were they listed prohibitions and things that you couldn't do. Certain things could be remedied by disciplinary action, and other things disciplinary action and including termination. And I just want folks to take a look at that and see if the balance is correct, that there are some things in the first category that could potentially be eligible for termination. But once again, I don't have the text in front of me, but it struck me as odd as I read the document. But I would, as long as our council has an opportunity to participate, and we all get to see a draft of some bill text. I'm not a member of this committee, but I would be appreciative of that.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Any other members of the committee want to talk?
Yeah, Madam-
Yes,
oh, go
yes,
ahead.
please.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Yeah, go ahead, Lynn.
Thank you. I was going to suggest, maybe Andrew and whoever, that there are some small details that we might want to keep a list of, just to see if it's something that's a concern of more than one person. I do have a couple of little detailed questions, but I also have a couple of broad, bigger ones. The first one that I think to me is the most important is, are we using the very latest version of Kronos? Because you mentioned a couple things that it doesn't do that, like my timekeeping software in other locations does. And I was just wondering how we are with that. Do we have a current version of it that we're using, or where are we?
Stephanie, do you know?
We aren't at the very latest version, but that has to do with our equipment and the interface with our scheduling systems that we do have. So it may not be the latest, but it is the most up to date for the interface with our other programs.
Okay, because the things like that leave requests don't go right through that timekeeping program is kind of curious to me. And
that's actually being piloted right now at the nursing home and the correctional facility. So those two programs, we do have that version that would enable those, both of those programs. So it's being piloted for those two departments.
all righty, and then that's something that I thought was missing. I think it was section F on page 4. It doesn't. There's nothing about working from home. Since we're in the middle of COVID, it's a kind of something that I think should be included in the. It seems missing to me. Just you don't have to talk about it now, but something I'd like to.
It's referenced in the broader sense where we state that. Because that is your work site in that moment. So we wouldn't necessarily, when we're talking about arriving to it could be an alternate work site.
Okay.
Because you're still expected to report on time. So when we're talking about time and
your home,
working remotely is within those specifications.
I think some of the state executive orders have superseded some of our personnel policies as well.
Yeah. And then, that just another incidental question. Are people allowed to carry a gun while they're working if it's authorized, if they're allowed? Is that something, just out of curiosity? I mean, I know that sheriffs can have guns, but everybody else, if they're allowed to carry a gun without anybody knowing, I forget what you call that. Can they do that in the workplace, or is that like at Planned Parenthood, you're not allowed to have a gun, even if you're allowed to have a gun, you have to go put it in your car, so I was kind of curious.
Concealed carry permit holder?
Yeah, that's it. Something like that.
Unauthorized weapons are listed in the infractions. So are you talking about an unauthorized weapon?
No, I guess I'm talking about an authorized weapon.
Yeah, authorized one, yeah.
They're allowed on our work sites?
An authorized weapon would be in the course of your employment. So I'm not sure what we'd need to talk about it offline, if the specific example that you're referring to, I think.
Okay. I think that's it for broad things. I'll save my teeny weeny questions for another time.
Okay. Thank you, Lynn. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Yeah, Mr.
I agree with Chairman Joyce. I don't want to get into the language back and forth on certain things, but there are two big ticket items I would want to include. The person use question, that's a big ticket item. What is allowable person to use? I think that needs to be very clear. I've worked at workplaces where this was used. If they didn't like somebody, all of a sudden they have a violation when everybody else is doing the same thing. So we have to be very clear, I think, about what is allowable personal use. And secondly, it says everyone has to use Cronus unless there's an exception. Well, I really think in this document, there should be a required report to the legislature who doesn't use Cronus and why. I think that's that would be very helpful for the legislature in terms of why these exceptions are made. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm. Anybody else?
Yeah, I got a few questions. What is the relationship between this November 5th, 2020 document, this memo, and the April 2020 time and attendance audit?
Do you want me to go with that, Jen?
Sure.
The time and attendance audit that we drafted, we thought was pretty conclusive, but the legislators asked us to actually recognize what the policy and the rules and regulations should indicate, which is really the legislators' duty, but they felt that they wanted the professionals, the Controller's Office and Human Resources, to help with that process. And you have policy and then you have procedure. So we met, Human Resources as well as the Controller's Office, as well as our Chief Auditor, to actually identify specifically utilizing the audit itself and added into the policy with, as directed by the legislator. So we basically took the audit and added to the policy what we, had identified.
So is the November 5th memorandum intended to be the sort of the implementation of the recommendations included in the time and attendance audit?
I'm trying to, when you say November, when you say the November, this is November 5th. So this is in the response to the legislation that asked us to, help with the response to the policy, to rules and regulations, to utilize the professionals, my understanding, to utilize the professionals. As is, you write a policy, they were looking for the Controller's Office and Human Resources to help with that policy. Policy is written by the legislators, but they felt that they wanted to utilize the experts, I guess they referred to us, to help with that process.
Okay. So were these intended to implement the recommendations and best practices that were included in the time and attendance audit?
I think the next step is after, you have the policy, but then obviously a lot of this is procedurally that Human Resources actually develops with the personal liaisons, and they document procedure.
Okay. Because when I look at the time and attendance audit from April 2020, the first audit observation, category 1, was Albany County attendance policy. And then in the document that was just circulated, A is attendance policy. So I thought that they were sort of lining up, but then I saw that the remainder of the recommendations, it doesn't seem like there was anything in the document that was just sent over that corresponded with the rest of the time and attendance audit.
Audit, right, and the difference between policy and procedure.
Okay, the difference between policy and procedure. So was the time and attendance audit supposed to be broader strokes about sort of here are the policies, whereas the November document was intended to be implementation of those policies through specific recommendations for regulations and something and whatnot? Is that the idea? I'm just trying to understand the relationship between this and, obviously there were shortcomings that were identified in the time and attendance audit report, to the extent that it is sort of incumbent upon the legislature to do anything to remedy those shortcomings. I'd just like to understand, what all the different documents that we have in front of us and how we can utilize them how we utilize this November document to remedy whatever was identified in the April document. And we just want to make sure that none of the shortcomings that were identified in the April document are sort of slipping through the cracks here and that nobody's doing anything about them.
And I think you take things in a, I don't want to say a point in time. So say an employee gets hired and he gets the rules and regulations and he reviews the rules and regulations when he gets hired. The procedure is then you have a personal liaison, and as human resources
I'm not talking you in.
educates the personal liaison to do a job as people, punch in and out and things of that nature. And then our chief auditor then does an audit to make sure that we're doing what we're saying in the time and attendance audit. I don't know if Jen or Stephanie, you want to articulate more with the steps, because I think this is it's like almost a stepped process. The first thing is the policy, then the procedure, we implement the procedure, and then we audit to make sure that we follow up with the audit that was done. I don't know if that's fair in kind of articulating what the process is.
I just want to add to that I think the November 5th letter is a reflection of what the legislature asked, which was provide an amendment recommendation to rules and regulations that would encompass the things that were presented in the audit as needing to be corrected. So this document is the recommended edits to rules and regulations. Obviously, there's things within the audit that go beyond that, but this would be things specific to edits or amendments to the rules and regulations.
Okay, well, I guess maybe let's get specific, right? Number 3, I'm back on the April time and attendance audit follow-up. Number 3 on page 12 and number 4 on page 13 of that document generally talked about, Number 4 was manual entries for in and out punches not verified and approved by a supervisor. Number 5 was manual time records entered, signed off on by subordinates. Some of the issues there had to do with the fact that you had, super employees getting their time approved by their subordinates, which obviously doesn't seem like a best practice. I'll just leave it at that. Where have we been provided with some sort of specific language to implement correction of that shortcoming in our system?
It's in the recommended changes in the
2D.
rules and regulations.
What, did somebody say like 2B?
It's under A, and then it's number 2, subsection D.
Okay. So
it also addresses it a little bit in A also, because it's requiring everybody to use the Chronos time. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is under B is how many people are going to be allowed to use it. And then the striation of who's allowed to do what.
Yeah, sorry, Jeff. 1C as well, as Lynn just said. A1C.
A1C. Okay.
See.
So it's mentioning a couple times, I think, addressing all those issues about people doing it for themselves, doing it for other people, approving their own things, approving their buddies' things. It seems to cover all that, I think, fairly well.
Okay. So the idea is that the legislature will sort of bless this as, yes, these are the policies that we want implemented. And then these will then be somehow reduced to specific requirements in the personnel code? What's the next step here? How do these general principles get implemented in a way that are specific? And for instance, how does this, what we have here, become you can't have subordinates approving time entries of their boss?
This,
The legislature makes those rules. That's on us.
Yeah, so it's what we're talking about.
No,
That
so
we do.
right. Well, Jen, you might want, so the
so
legislators
this
make rules
document
and then, yeah,
is actually given, this is the rules and regulations, or you were saying like a code, this is the rules and regulations that's handed out to every county employee. It's on our AlcoNet. So these amendments would then be posted there and provided to every county employee. The implementation portion are the responsibility of human resources. And I think we kind of specified there that human resources in the instances where we would be working with the departments specifically to implement these rules. And then there's an audit portion as well, where they would be routinely reviewed and monitored.
Okay.
Madam-
Go ahead. Yeah, I'll stop for the time being. I'm not going to pretend that I really understand this, but or where exactly the implementation of some of this stuff is in here. But I think I've spoken enough. I'll let other people weigh in.
Mr. Chairman, it's Paul.
Yes, go ahead, Paul.
I'm kind of with Jeff. I'm trying to figure out how we get from point A to point B. Because what we as the legislature did was we asked the people most familiar with the process to make a series of recommendations. And they can make recommendations to us, but the county legislature sets policy.
Correct. It's our handbook.
In the handbook.
Right. But I mean, so is our job now to work with our council and our members to mark up the November 20th or the most recent one that came out and try to develop a consensus and pass it or endorse it as the legislature? Or is that a regulatory function where the policy is not set by us and it's just put in an employee handbook? So I'm sort of with Jeff trying to figure out what the next step is. I mean, we're all going to work together. We're all going to raise questions publicly, privately, online, offline. And then you're going to have a document, which I would like to see, redlined against what we've received so far so that we can actually see the changes. And then does somehow the legislature approve that? Is that your understanding?
The legislature.
Mr. Chairman, this is Andrew.
Yes, Andrew, go ahead.
We invited the comptroller and HR tonight as kind of a bit of a courtesy and kind of an administrative thing to kind of talk about some of their changes and some of the things that they have recommended in their input into our request for a draft in terms of remedying some of the issues that we saw in the audit. And the process you described, Mr. Bergdorf, isn't too far off from what I'm envisioning. And Mr. Kuhn, I hope this answers some of your questions as well. Yes, what we've got from HR and the comptroller's office is very good. It's a very good start. And now it's incumbent on us amongst staff for majority counsel, Mr. Collins and minority counsel to kind of redline the thing for sure, and to edit and to improve and to circulate amongst the membership, chiefly amongst personnel at this point, and continuing crosstalk between HR and the comptroller's office till we have something very good and solid and defensible and understandable amongst all parties here. So we can go forth and say that, yes, this widely publicized issue that we've all been tackling, we've looked at it, we worked across all lines, all party lines and all departmental lines, and we fixed it. So Mr. Bergdorf, I think what you just described is what I'm envisioning going forward. We invited the comptroller in HR in tonight to kind of do broad strokes and and talk about some of the issues that were identified, answer some questions, but the work is going to continue going forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, okay, so I guess I'm understanding it a little bit more, sort of what the process is here. This is a markup of the rules and regulations for Albany County employees. Article 2, which is entitled attendance, right? So, and this is a proposed markup of the attendance portion of the rules and regulations, right? So,
Right,
but there are recommendations in the time and attendance audit report from April that go beyond attendance, right? I mean, the issues that I brought up, and I really just brought them up as an example of a couple of the shortcomings. Those are not attendance issues, like the ability of a supervisor to get his subordinate to sign off on his time and on his time entries is, to me, not an attendance issue, and it is not identified in the April report as part of the attendance policy. It's something else. So it seems like the implementation of the correction of that particular shortcoming doesn't seem to me like it's something that would go under attendance. It would go elsewhere. And so I guess, yes, I'm happy that the April report identified that as something that needs to be fixed. I just think we need to figure out precisely where the particular language that remedies that needs to go. And it doesn't seem like it goes in Article 2, but I'm not sure where else it would go.
And Mr. Kuhn, I appreciate that. And I think kind of going forward, we can work with majority council and our council to find out where that goes and where that correction goes. And your review and everyone else's review is going to be very helpful as we fix this.
Yeah, and I appreciate the comptroller's April report. There are many thoughtful observations in there. There's many thoughtful recommendations, and I just I think the comptroller and the head of HR might be sort of in the best position to make an initial recommendation of the particular language that should go in the rules and regulations of Albany County employees to implement these particular recommendations.
Okay.
Mr. Ether, it's Pat Collins, if I may, real quick.
Pat, go ahead.
I completely understand Mr. Kuhn's question as to why this fits into the attendance policy. There's 15 separate articles in the rules and regulations. I think they just picked the one that's most likely. I think when I looked at this, I think we need another 16th article that would logically encapsulate all of these issues. I don't think that's a heavy lift to do. There was not an otherwise logical one to put these changes in. It does tangentially relate to attendance, but I think I know where you're going with it. It's not as obvious to be in that section. So that's certainly something that I've already started looking at. Where are we going to put it in? But when these are all put into the rules and regulations, they are the policy governing Albany County employees. The rules and regulations are only amendable by the legislature. So whatever act the legislature carries out, whatever resolution is passed, will be amendments to the rules and regulations, and that will govern the employees in the county. If there needs to be minor policies department to department, they will only be based on what's in the rules and regulations guidance. So I think for Mr. Bergdorf's question earlier, Mr. Kuhn's question, I think that amending the rules and regulations on all of these different facets will affect the policy that is at issue tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Any other questions on this?
Yeah,
Yes, please.
Go
Mark,
ahead,
go
Lynn.
ahead.
Okay, yeah, I just so we're clear, I think Chairman Joyce is committing tonight to have the three councils work together to develop legislation that moves the ball on what we're talking about now. Because I think we have agreement on, you can't have your subordinates sign your timesheet. The recommendation, how can you sign for somebody who works at a different place? And of course, the prohibition on political campaign work. All those things need to be, I think, in one legislative package and the three councils worked that out. Is that what you're saying, Chairman Joyce?
Yes, Mr. Graham, and thank you. That was always the intent.
Okay.
As the comptroller had mentioned before, I wanted to convene the experts on this just to kind of clear the air on the political, public facing issue that this all posed for all of us. Okay, yes, convene HR in the comptroller's office, develop a set of recommendations and have the legislature refine, in concert with HR and the comptroller's office for a final, something for
Okay.
legislative approval. We got a good start on it tonight, but we have a ways to go, it seems, and that's okay.
Okay.
Mr.
Great,
Can I
Chairman.
understand, can I have my time back?
Yeah, go ahead, Lynn.
So the way that I understand it is we are going to work together, but that this document here are rules and regulations, which so aptly is named the 89-page document that we were looking at, that our legislation is going to be an amendment to this document because we have to amend this document. This is the document we have control over. This is the document that lays out our ideas or what's fair for all the employees of the county. Unless I'm completely confused, which I might be. But, so I have two questions. My first question is to Sue and Jen. Is there anything that you feel like you left out from the time and attendance audit? Any that you were identified you couldn't hear for some reason, or didn't agree to work in here, or is just completely missing?
I have nothing to add at this time.
We'll take that as a no.
Yeah, my comment
And
is not to,
that's okay.
Yeah.
yeah, my comment is not to the time and attendance. My comment, and I think I mentioned this initially to Mr. Collins, and I think when I first was hired and I looked at the rules and regulations and then realized that there's so many amendments to the rules and regulations, to how many areas I had to look at. And I said it would be nice to just have the reference in the rules and regulations of all the things that I had to refer to in the regulations. So I took it upon myself to take my book and in all the references so I knew when I had to look for something. And I think he did the same, or I said, if we don't rewrite the entire rules and regulations, we should at least have a reference to all the changes to where we look in the rules and regulations. Because obviously this document is older and there's things that have changed in, current times. And that was the thing that I just thought that it was beneficial for me when I added, when it says A, B, C, D, and I had to add E, F, G, H, because the amendments have actually been added already by the legislators.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Thank
And
you,
then
Sue.
my other
Any other
question,
Go ahead.
if I can. When I was reading the other bigger document, the 89 pager, I noticed that we have a lot of great programs like, ADA accommodations and FMLA leave and affirmative action, but we don't necessarily call out any training in. I know we have the sexual harassment training was mentioned, and that's important, and we're doing that right now. Yay, if you didn't do it yet, get to it. So is there any other training that I would like to see some other trainings be a policy of all of us working together, some maybe implicit bias training or diversity training, or just, we're working with lots of different people from lots of different walks of life, and it's not always easy for everybody. So to understand a little bit more about each other, I don't think would be harmful. And I would like to put that on the list of things that should be included in our policy. And then there was a reference to sick leave. I think it was section 6.1. It says sick leave for legal relationship of spouses, parents, guardians, children, stepchildren, foster children. And I just wondered if that word legal there is A, necessary, or B, means anything. And this was from a 1999 version, I think. So I'd have a question. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that some other time. And I think that's it for now.
Thank you, Lynn. Any other questions?
Nope. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Sean.
John, piggybacking on the training, I just, and I don't have the document in front of me. I can't find the email that was referenced, but as far as the handbook goes, there is 3 mandated trainings that I'm aware of. It's ethics, sexual harassment, and workplace violence. And they should be in the policy. However, any others that are not mandated, in my personal opinion, I would not recommend putting them in our employment handbook, because it's so hard to get people to train on even the 3 mandated policies. If we start adding policies that aren't mandated, we may put ourselves in a bad situation, even if we have good intentions. So that's something we really got to think about. But I think this is great because, the last time I think we actually voted on a handbook amendment was a long time ago, and it's really hard. And I know, from my day job, it's very difficult to have the time to get together and amend this with all the changes that occur year to year or even month to month lately. So I think it's great that we're all sitting together here, and I think there's been some great dialogue back and forth. And I think it's a good time right now to dig in and get this done. It is a legislature's document. So good discussion.
Thank you, Sean. I had a question for Jen or Sue. The employees, when we finalize this package, the rules and regulations, how does it contribute to the workers? How are they aware of all this?
The Albany County rules and regulations are available on Alconet. We hand every employee our rules and regulations at the point of hire. If we did a significant change, we can distribute those electronically to every employee as well.
Okay, when you make changes, you do that to every employee when there's a good number of changes, not 1 or 2?
Well, resolutions that pass that don't necessarily amend the rules and regulations, but they're as an addendum, are distributed to employees. If it's an amendment within the rules and regulations, like the most recent change to health insurance, that section was amended and then distributed.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jen.
Just for the membership's knowledge, Commissioner Clement referred to Alconet. That's the county's internal intranet. It's where employee documents are posted, and it's available on all county computers on the network.
Is that our iPads?
All right.
No, it's on the network.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But we don't supply them any paper copies?
We do. We also supply, because we have quite a few employees who are not, don't have an email. And so we also provide the paper and the full document, a hard copy.
And that be there upon request too from an employee?
We distribute via email to those employees on the email system. If you're not on the email system, we hand out the hard paper version.
Jen, do they have to sign that they've seen it?
Yes, all employees sign up that they received a copy of rules and regulations.
Okay, I figured.
So can an employee go to Human Resource Office and ask for a copy and be given one?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is it posted online?
Yeah, on the Alconet system. Alconet is the Albany County intranet. That's an internal system. If you're on any county computer, it's actually the first site that pulls up when you open the internet.
Just not our iPads.
Oh, sorry.
Where are we now?
Do we have access to it under Office 365?
It's on our network. You need to be logged into the network. Like when I'm at home, I have to log into my work computer to get it. If you want a copy of the rules and regulations, I can provide a digital copy to everyone.
I think that might be
That'd
be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
does new legislators, did we get that when we started?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think you did.
Pat, could you give me
Not
a
in your
copy, a
email.
hard copy?
Yes, Mr. Ethier.
You probably did.
Could you give me a
Matt.
hard copy?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Oh, I didn't hear you, Pat. Thank you, Pat. Anything else to discuss? Everybody satisfied with the meeting?
Very good meeting.
What about my Republican friends who had a hit fit over this whole thing? Are they satisfied so far?
Well, Mr. Ethier,
Gil, come on.
I'm certainly grateful that we've added banning.
Well, I'm glad
political
I'm
campaign time.
very happy.
Yes.
I'm trying to
You asked
make you
the
happy,
question,
that's
then-
all.
You asked the question, you're going to get that answer.
Yep. That's a good question, good answer. I'm very glad you guys are happy. Any other suggestions for the future?
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Be safe. My suggestion.
Stay safe, everybody. Have fun.
So who, I want to know what the rest of the process is going to be. Who's going to be the lead on this? Who's taking care of it? All of the councils are going to be working on it, and then we're going to hear more back again sometime soon.
That is the intention, Lynn, yes.
On this.
Okay. Sounds good.
I'm sorry, Andrew, can you repeat that? There were two people speaking at the same time. Chairman Joyce, you just said something in response to Mr. Kakis, and I just wanted to hear what you said.
I think he left.
I don't,
Oh.
it seems to be an issue. He's not muted, but he just disappeared.
I think he dropped out.
All right, whatever.
I can't see his face.
I think he was saying he's going to take the lead on it and inform us.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Yeah, would you note my tardiness, please?
I'll note your presence, not necessarily your tardiness. Mr. Simpson.
Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you to our
everybody.
guests
Have
for
a-
coming.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everybody. Have a happy, safe Thanksgiving.
Good night.
Happy.
Aye.
Good night.
Best of all, everybody.
Good.
Aye.
Thank you.